May 2003, USS Abraham Lincoln, aircraft carrier. George W. Bush steps out of a fighter jet, flight suit, confident smile. Behind him, a banner, mission accomplished. The war is over. Saddam Hussein's regime has fallen. Baghdad has been taken. American military power is supreme. That moment looked like the apex of American dominance. It wasn't. It was the beginning of the end. Historians will look back at that day the same way they look at Rome as overextension into Dacia or Britain as Pyrrhic victory in World War I, not as triumph. As the moment the empire broke itself, the United States won the Iraq War, tactically. Saddam was toppled, his military dissolved, his statues torn down. But strategy isn't about winning battles. Strategy is about achieving objectives that strengthen your position. And by that measure, Iraq wasn't just a failure. It was geopolitical suicide. 4,500 American soldiers dead, $3 trillion spent, 8 years of occupation. And at the end of it all, the keys to Iraq were handed on a silver platter to the United States' greatest regional adversary, Iran. This is the story of how an empire commits strategic self-destruction while celebrating tactical victory. This is the autopsy of American hegemony. Let's start with the map. Before 2003, the Middle East had a balance of power. Fragile, hostile, but balanced. Iran. Shia theocracy. Revolutionary, expansionist, Iraq. Sunni dictatorship under Saddam Hussein. Brutal, secular, anti-Iranian. These two countries hated each other. They had fought an 8-year war in the 1980s. Over 1 million people died. Saddam's Iraq was a wall, a barrier between Iran and the Arab world. Iran wanted influence in Syria, in Lebanon, in the Gulf. Saddam blocked them. This wasn't by design. It wasn't because Saddam was America's ally. He was a monster. But he was a useful monster, a counterweight. Then the United States invaded. Saddam fell. His military was dismantled. His Sunni officer class was purged. And the wall came down. What happened next was predictable, inevitable. Iraq's population is 60% Shia. Under Saddam, they were oppressed. After the invasion, they took power. And they looked to Iran, not to Washington, to Tehran. Iran flooded Iraq with money, weapons, influence. They backed Shia militias. They funded political parties. They embedded themselves into Iraq's government, its military, its intelligence services. Within 5 years, Iraq had to transform from Iran's greatest enemy into Iran's closest ally. Today, posters of Iranian leaders hang in the streets of Baghdad. Iraqi Shia militias take orders from Tehran. The Iraqi government coordinates with Iran on nearly every major decision. The so-called Shia Crescent, stretching from Tehran through Baghdad to Damascus to Beirut, became a reality. Iran now has a land corridor to the Mediterranean. They can supply Hezbollah in Lebanon. They can support Assad in Syria. They dominate Iraq. All thanks to the United States military. This isn't speculation. This isn't anti-American propaganda. This is the conclusion of the United States Army's own report. In 2019, the Army published a 1,300-page study of the Iraq War. It was blunt. Quote, "The only winner of this conflict appears to be an emboldened and expansionist Iran." Read that again. The United States Army, after years of analysis, admitted that the primary beneficiary of the Iraq War was America's greatest adversary in the region. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. This was strategic blindness. The architects of the war, the neoconservatives in Washington, believed that removing Saddam would create a democratic domino effect. Iraq would become a stable, pro-Western democracy. Other countries would follow. They were wrong, catastrophically wrong. Iraq didn't become a beacon of democracy. It became an Iranian satellite state, and the entire regional balance of power shifted against the United States. But the damage wasn't just geopolitical, it was moral. Before Iraq, the United States claimed to represent something: human rights, rule of law, international norms. That claim was always debatable, but it had power, soft power. Iraq destroyed it. The invasion itself was launched on false pretenses, weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist, connections to Al-Qaeda that were fabricated. Then came the occupation. Abu Ghraib prison, 2004. Photographs leaked, American soldiers torturing Iraqi detainees, hooded prisoners, attack dogs, sexual humiliation. The images went global. The United States, the supposed defender of human dignity, was torturing prisoners in the same facility where Saddam had tortured his enemies. The hypocrisy was undeniable, and the world noticed. Shock and awe. The name of the bombing campaign, 2,000 sorties in 48 hours, designed to terrorize the enemy into submission. The United States had always claimed to fight differently. Precision strikes, minimize civilian casualties, adhere to the laws of war. Shock and awe was psychological warfare through overwhelming violence. It worked tactically. Baghdad fell quickly. But strategically, it sent a message. Might makes right. International law is irrelevant. power is the only currency that matters. That message didn't just reach America's enemies, it reached America's rivals, Russia, China. They were watching. Fast forward to 2022. Russia invades Ukraine. The world is outraged, violations of sovereignty, unprovoked aggression, war crimes. Russia's response? Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov invoked Iraq. Quote, "The United States invaded Iraq over a vial of unknown chemicals. Where was international law then?" He was right. The United States had set the precedent. If America could invade a sovereign country based on false intelligence, why couldn't Russia? Iraq didn't just weaken American credibility, it shattered the international legal framework that had restrained powerful nations since World War II. The United States killed international law and then acted surprised when others stopped following it. China is watching as it considers Taiwan. Russia acted in Ukraine, the rulebook is gone, and the United States burned it in Baghdad. Now let's talk money. $3 trillion. That's the total cost of the Iraq War when you include interest on the borrowed money and long-term care for wounded veterans. $3 trillion. For context, that's more than the entire GDP of the United Kingdom. Where did that money go? Not into American infrastructure, not into education, not into healthcare or technology or the future. It went into the sand, into contractors, into a war that achieved nothing strategically. But here's the real cost: opportunity. While the United States spent $3 trillion fighting in Iraq, China was building high-speed rail, ports, cities, factories, the Belt and Road Initiative. While American resources were consumed by war, China was laying the foundation for economic dominance. In 2003, China's economy was 1/6 the size of America's. By 2023, it's nearly equal. That's not a coincidence. War is a black hole. It consumes resources and produces nothing. The money spent on Iraq didn't build anything. It destroyed. Then it paid contractors to rebuild at inflated prices. Meanwhile, competitors invested in their futures. The Iraq War didn't just cost $3 trillion. It cost America its lead, but the strategic disasters didn't end when the war did. May 2003. Paul Bremer, head of the Coalition Provisional Authority, made two decisions. First, disband the Iraqi army. 400,000 soldiers, suddenly unemployed. Second, de-Baathification. Purge anyone associated with Saddam's party from government positions. These decisions created a power vacuum. And into that vacuum came insurgency, chaos, civil war. Sunni officers, now jobless and humiliated, joined the resistance. Many would later form the core of ISIS, the Islamic State, born from the ashes of the Iraq War. The United States toppled Saddam to eliminate a threat. In doing so, it created a far worse one. By 2014, ISIS controlled territory the size of Great Britain. It declared a caliphate. It committed genocides. And the United States had to return to Iraq, again, to fight an enemy it had created. The war that ended in 2011 restarted in 2014. American troops went back, airstrikes resumed. Mission accomplished? Let's zoom out. Empires don't collapse because of external enemies. Empires collapse because of internal rot, overextension, unsustainable debt, strategic blunders, moral decay. Rome fell because it stretched too thin, because it couldn't afford its military, because its institutions became corrupt. The parallels are obvious. The United States invaded Iraq, believing its military supremacy was unassailable, that it could reshape the world through force. It was wrong. The war exposed the limits of American power. Military dominance doesn't translate to political control. You can topple a regime in 3 weeks. You can't build a stable state in a decade. Iraq revealed that the United States could win every battle and still lose the war. And the costs compound. $3 trillion added to the national debt. The debt that now stands at $36 trillion. 4,500 soldiers dead. Tens of thousands wounded. PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, suicides. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis dead. An entire region destabilized. Iran empowered. ISIS created. International law destroyed. American credibility shattered. China rising unopposed while America bled in the desert. For what? Saddam is gone. So what? He was replaced by chaos and Iranian influence. Iraq is no longer a threat to its neighbors, but it's also no longer an independent state. It's an Iranian proxy. The United States spent $3 trillion and 4,500 lives to hand the Middle East to Tehran. This is what strategic failure looks like. Tactical victories, battles won, cities taken. But the war? Lost. Because war isn't about battles. War is about achieving political objectives that strengthen your position. The objective in Iraq was to eliminate a threat and create stability. The result was the opposite. A greater threat created. Regional instability. American decline accelerated. Here's the lesson. Empires that survive are empires that think strategically. They choose their battles. They avoid quagmires. They understand that power is finite and must be conserved. Empires that fall are empires that believe their own propaganda. That confused military strength with strategic wisdom, that overreach. The Iraq War was overreach. It was hubris. It was the moment American hegemony began its decline. Not because America lost militarily, but because it won the battle and lost the empire. 2003. That year will be remembered, not as the year American power peaked, but as the year it cracked. The year the empire fired into its own heart while aiming at a distant enemy. The missile that hit Baghdad didn't just destroy Saddam's regime, it destroyed the foundation of American dominance. Moral authority, economic strength, strategic focus, international legitimacy, all of it eroded in the sands of Iraq. China didn't need to fight the United States. It just needed to wait while America exhausted itself in the desert. Russia didn't need to challenge American power directly. It just needed to cite American hypocrisy when it acted. Iran didn't need to defeat the United States militarily. America handed them the region. Mission accomplished. Not for America, for its adversaries. Empires don't fall from outside attacks. Empires collapse from within. From arrogance, from strategic blindness, from debts that can never be repaid. The first missile fired at Baghdad in 2003 was aimed at the heart of American hegemony. And it hit. History doesn't hide the answers. It just waits for you to ask the right questions. I just show you where to look. If this video revealed the strategic disaster behind the tactical victory, subscribe to this channel. If you want more investigations that dissect how empires rise and fall through the lens of economics and power, turn on notifications. And if you believe others need to understand why American dominance is ending, share this video, because the truth only spreads when you spread it. Tactical wins are temporary. Strategic failures are permanent. See you in the next autopsy.